YouTube, it's Kathy, and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for March 14th through 20th. This week I read 3 books, I watched 4 shows, I watched 4 movies, and I listened to 2 books. First, from the Life's Library Book Club, I read How to Write an Autobiographical Novel. This is an essay collection by Alexander Chee, and I really enjoyed it. I didn't know anything about this author going into this book, and one thing I found very interesting is that he overlaps with the writer of another essay collection that I got through Life's Library Book Club. She was one of his many writing teachers. I actually ended up DNFing her collection and really enjoyed this one much more. This collection had various different snippets of Alexander's life. One was a trip to Mexico that he took with a bunch of his classmates where he had to be there for the summer, and it was kind of an exchange thing, so people from Mexico came to his city or town in Maine and they did kind of a you come live at my place, then I'll go live at your place type of thing. It also had to do with him being mixed race, it had to do with him being queer, it had to do with the AIDS epidemic, it had to do with a lot of things, especially writing. Writing was a big focus. As you might guess from the title of the essay collection, that is one of the essays in this book. And overall I recommend it. It's interesting that that sounds like a novel and isn't, because this next one sounds like it shouldn't be a novel, but it is, and that's How I Paid for College. I believe that the subtitle of this one is a novel of sex, theft, friendship, and musical theater. And yes, all of those things are in here. Our protagonist is Edward. We start out seeing that he is basically the star of all of the theater productions in his small town, and his dream is to go to Juilliard. He doesn't have a great relationship with his parents. His mom split a while ago. His dad basically only sees him every Wednesday where they have family dinners, and he works his butt off choreographing shows, being in shows, all of those types of things. His best friend is a year older and she's actually on her way to Juilliard after this summer, so that's very exciting for her. And then, as you might guess from the title of this book, we get into many shenanigans from here. I originally wondered if my library had mislabeled this and put it in the adult section instead of the teen section until I started reading it and went, yeah, this is a lot more adult content than you generally find in a YA book, so it makes sense. This book is also set in the 80s, so prepare for casual homophobia and sexism and ableism and fat phobia. There's some of that in there as well because his best friend is plus size. This very much becomes an exploration of identity for these characters while all these friends of his are banding together to figure out how to get him to college because his dad doesn't want to pay for it. This is one of the many books that was recommended in the recent collaboration that I put together, which was book recommendations for theater lovers, so if you like the sound of this one, check out that video, I'll link it down below. The other book I read this week was my first book for Sequelathon, and that was The Backstagers and The Ghost Light. This is technically the first in a middle grade novel series, however it is a sequel to the graphic novel series, so I'm counting it. The Backstagers are this ragtag group of friends who work the backstage of theater productions at this all-boys school. Each of them has either their own specialty, so lights or props, or in the case of one of them, they're training to become the stage manager when the current stage managers leave next year. As this novel opens, they're closing a production of Lise, which let's just talk about that. Every time they talk about a theater show in this, they give it a title that is very close to or references a title of something in the theater, but they don't just come right out and call it that show. So for example, Lise was Rent, Les Terribles is Les Miserables, and I believe they also had Violinist on the Ceiling, which is obviously Fiddler on the Roof. I found little details like that fun. Anyway, they're wrapping up one show and they have this cast party on the stage, and then some spooky things start happening at this cast party and the ghost light goes out, and it's not immediately replaced because Sasha gets a little bit distracted backstage, and we go from there. If you've never heard about these graphic novels or books before, you might not know that this is a fantasy world where if you go into the backstage area, you can actually connect to all the other theaters in the world, and every theater specialty has its own room, so there is a room for lighting equipment, for sound equipment, for props, that type of thing. However, it kind of moves around a bit, and there's some extra weird rooms back there that you don't really want to get into. This was delightful, and I've already put the second book on the series on hold for my library. On to what I watched this week, first being Bones. We've gotten heavily into Bones. Before, we were just kind of watching an episode here and there, and this week we watched the majority of the 6th season and we've moved on into the 7th season. I think what's going to end up happening is we're going to watch the 6th season, the 7th season, all the way to the end and then just loop back to the beginning, because why not? This is one of those shows that was on TV during the period of time where I would just sit down and watch whatever happened to be on TV when I was sitting down to watch TV, as opposed to now, the way that I consume this type of media is I sit down and I watch an entire season of something. That means I remember some of what happened because I saw a lot of the episodes back in the day, but I definitely didn't see all of them, so it is fun to go back and have my roommate be like, oh yeah, it's this episode, me be like, yeah, sure, I totally remember that. We've also started watching Malcolm in the Middle from the very beginning, and it has been a lot of fun so far. Extremely awkwardly, in the 4th episode, there's a situation where Malcolm has a head injury, and if you're not familiar with the show, this character often turns to camera and explains things. And in this episode, this character turns to camera and says something to the effect of, "The good thing about having a head injury is there's a good chance I won't remember any of this." That's awkward because that actor grew up to become a race car driver, was in a crash, and doesn't really remember shooting this show. So yeah, seeing that was a little bit weird, but this has been a very fun show to go back to because, again, I remember a bunch of things from this series, and even just this first season, I remember so many things because obviously this is the season I would have seen the most through reruns. Then of course I watched the finale of RuPaul's Drag Race UK, and yay for that queen. I'm not going to wreck it here in case you haven't seen it yet, although I'm sure the internet would have wrecked it for you, but I'm not going to be that person. I am very happy for who won. I've been rooting for that person from the beginning, but I would have been kind of happy with anyone. There wasn't anyone that I was like, that person doesn't deserve it. We also had a hell of an elimination on RuPaul's Drag Race this week, so we'll see how that goes. The previous elimination I hated even more than this one. This one was kind of shocking to me. We'll see how this season goes because I don't know who is going to end up on top. As for the 4 movies I watched this week, they were all from the same franchise. It was Mission Impossible, Mission Impossible 2, Mission Impossible 3, and Mission Impossible 4 Ghost Protocol. 2 and 3 might have had fancy second titles, but I wasn't paying any attention. And we only watched Ghost Protocol last night, so it's fresh in my mind for that. This is a fun franchise because you don't go into it too much for the plot. You know they're gonna have to do something that's going to seem impossible. You know that they're gonna have some struggles along the way. You know that eventually they're gonna end up winning. And that's pretty much what I get out of these movies. If you happen to fall asleep at some point during the movie because the chair you just bought is really, really comfortable, you're gonna wake up and you're not gonna really have missed all that much. I do like that there's really cool spy tech and they get to use that every once in a while. I do like that some characters come back. For example, Luther has been in all 4 of these films so far. Simon Pegg's character came back from the 3rd to the 4th. There's another character that comes back from the 3rd to the 4th, but that is also a spoiler, so not telling you that. Will I be able to tell you about the rich inner lives of these characters or the intricate plot? Not so much. Are they entertaining enough? Yeah, sure. I know I had seen the first one as a kid. I'm assuming I saw the second one because I remember him climbing that big rock at the beginning. The other 2 I definitely hadn't seen before. On to the books I listened to this week, the first one being Anna on the Edge by A.J. Sass. This is about a character who is 12 years old and a figure skater, but every time she comes up against these certain things to do with the sport, it kind of grates on her. For example, if somebody calls her by her full name, which is Anna Marie, that kind of grates on her. She definitely prefers Anna. Additionally, for the past 3 years, her coach has never made her wear a skirt, and she's in this situation where she gets a new choreographer and they make her wear a skirt, and she doesn't really like that. One day at the ring, she's helping out with skate school and she ended up grabbing the wrong name badge when she got on the ice, so she has her coach's name badge on, and somebody calls her Alex and uses he/him pronouns. And she is not opposed to that. This is even more intriguing to her because she knows that that student didn't always have he/him pronouns. One of the things that I love about this book is it's not all solved by the end. Anna hasn't decided which pronouns are going to suit her the best, which is why I've just kept to these ones. However, throughout this book she is constantly noticing gendered things and how they make her feel. In addition, you might remember that I love queer sports things, so obviously this was a book that I wanted to pick up. There's a lot of information in this about figure skating, and even though I don't know all the names of twists and turns and that type of thing, I really enjoyed listening to this book and just picturing what her programs could have looked like. I would definitely read another book by this author because AJ just seems so cool. The other book I listened to was The Skin We're In by Desmond Cole, as read by the author. This book takes a year from recent Canadian history, in this case I believe it was 2017, and talks about some of the racist things that happened throughout that year, giving context from other years, or if there's an ongoing case from 2017, lets you know how it resolves, or if it was still ongoing by the time of publication. I've said it before and I'll say it again, people tend to think that Canada is just all that much better than America because we're fed this narrative of the slaves escaped from America to here, and some of them did, and some of them actually escaped to the northern United States from Canada because situations where they were that bad. We're constantly fed this narrative that Canada doesn't have a race problem when that is just so far from the truth. If you are Canadian and you grew up in social studies being told that we are just so much better than America when it comes to race relations, just read this book, please. The author, Desmond Cole, is right at the intersection of activism and journalism, and it was just so well put together, and everybody should read it. That's it for this week. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment, but want to make sure that I know you were here, just leave me an emoji or a smiley face if you're on your computer. Some people have asked if there's a way to financially support this channel, so I set up a Ko-fi account, which is a digital tipping service. The link for that is down below, as well as the link to my PayPal and my Amazon wishlist in case you would like to buy me a book. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!